This is official map of Ukrainian Ministry of Defense, and actually, it's from our estimations pretty good information about what's going on. Since 2014, to understand the situation, to understand the context of everything what's going on around Ukraine. Before 2014, Russia didn't have any troops around Ukraine. So what we have now on this map was created after 2014. In period of 2014-2017, Russia built up three new armies built up. It's first tank army close to Moscow, which is created especially for like a first echelon, especially against Poland and against Baltic states. But the second echelon, the first tank army, this is the second echelon for Ukraine. If Russia will conduct strategic offensive operation against Ukraine, it will be the second echelon. So if we're talking about the next, it's a 20th army with, I could show you with, yeah. So here we have actually the forecast of Ukrainian military intelligence on what kind of preparations now is doing Russia. But if you're talking about the statistic and the static development of Russian forces, the first tank army is staying over there, close to Moscow, as a second echelon for Ukraine. First echelon, it's 20th Army, which is headquartered is Voronezh, but the divisions staying like here in Boguchar and Klintsy, and the battalion task forces, they staying absolutely close to Ukrainian border, even in normal position. Yes. It's not a development. It's like they shouldn't go 100 kilometers because even, for example, the 3rd Division in Boguchar is staying like 20 kilometers from Ukrainian border, the entire division. So when we're talking about the 8th Army, which was created in with headquarters in Novocherkassk, close to Rostov. In Novocherkassk, it's very interesting. Before war and during the 2014-2015 was a center for territorial troops, like mobilization center for getting people from all of Russia to mobilize and to send them to Donbass. So now the 1st and 2nd Army Corps, which is the occupied forces on Donbass, belongs to this 8th Army. So 8th Army consists of 150 division, 40 brigade, and 1st and 2nd Army Corps of Lugansk and Donetsk. So sometimes it's talking about the rebels or something like this. No, nothing about rebels. It's absolutely normal army for Russian forces. So all of logistics, all of leadership is creating all of preparations here on Novocherkassk, 8th Army, and after this sending new forces and rotation with Donetsk and Lugansk. All of armament, all of people, everything, money, fuel, whatever. So for normal situation, Russia is ready to attack Ukraine 3 armies. It's a normal situation since 2017, and especially after the Zapad 2017 exercise, when Russia showed ability to move fast for 3 days, entire 1st Tank Army through Belarus territory to Polish border, and they showed to NATO that NATO is not prepared for any defense operation, because for 3 days, NATO will only think about how to think about. Because when we play the game during the Zapad 2021, I was absolutely happy to participate in war game with NATO partners in Warsaw in 2017. When we started to count how many days should take the making decision process NATO countries to collect forces, collect troops, to create some defensive operations against this Tostan army, we count in like 35 days. And because in 2017, it was absolutely destroyed logistics from United States to Germany to make troops by sea. Because, for example, during the Cold War, it was a huge infrastructure to get fast deployment of American forces in Germany. But after the Cold War and 30 years of peacetime, it was absolutely commercialized and no infrastructure for deployment of fast deployment in the United States forces. We didn't have any so-called Schengen zone for military troops inside of European Union, so it should be some special procedure to ask Italian forces how to go through Germany or France. Or it was crazy when we started to count what kind of troops could NATO collect to protect Baltic states and Poland. It was total disaster. Now situation changed. Now just in Riga, it was MFA summit for NATO, and Ukraine participated in this summit, and now NATO is ready to send kind of 40,000 forces to Baltic states immediately, and this is a huge progress. But since 2017, Russia made a huge progress in this region as well. And when we're talking about Russia is ready to attack, yes, Russia is ready to attack now in this moment, to attack Ukraine, to attack Poland, to attack Baltic states immediately. Because sometimes we're talking about it, okay, it should be some 2 months before preparations, like preparation for attack, and it took some 2 months. But in reality, all of these lieutenant task forces, they are ready to fight. Okay. And all of these troops staying on the Ukrainian border, they are ready to fight. And what is the most important, because sometimes in media we have estimations kind of the operations like 19th century. So we will collect some troops and go like infantry going to attack Ukraine. No way. It will be several waves of this offensive operation. First of all, information and cyber, and electronic warfare, and the special forces, which could be the activation of these phases could be like 2 weeks before the military means. So like information, cyber, electronic warfare, special forces, which could started to make some activities on Ukrainian territory 2 weeks before. After this preparation of battlefield will be missile phase. What Russia has here is kind of 200 missiles here on occupied Crimea with submarines and ships.
Is it the Iskander?
No, it's Caliber missiles with
cruise missiles?
cruise missiles to 2.5 thousand kilometers. So it's not only for Ukraine, but it's covering a huge territory. And especially because of submarine, it's very difficult to find a submarine. I would say that a little bit, couple words about Black Sea. Russia now is dominate totally in Black Sea. The 6 submarines, this is the only submarines in Black Sea. So Russia totally controlling underwater space domain. It's in the total disaster for NATO in Black Sea, total disaster for Ukraine, because we cannot guarantee any move in Black Sea because we don't have any submarines and we don't have very small anti-submarine warfare here. I mean NATO and Ukraine. They have ships here with Caliber missiles, and they have what is interesting for this year, since since April 2021, they bring a new airborne brigade here and started to modernize it to new type of airborne regiment, so-called light air mobile regiment with helicopters, which is new tactics for Russians, because usually from Soviet times they use strategic airlift aircraft like Ilyushin 76. Instead of this, they preferring the regiment with task forces, company task forces, to make I think tactical descent here to land in here, like maybe 100 kilometers. Obviously, it means that they need to provide the operational tactical depth to get, for example, like together with Marine Corps. By the way, the Russians collected here in Crimea now with all of landing ships from Baltic Navy, from Northern Navy, from Caspian Flotilla, and from Black Sea Fleet. So it means that all of these landing ships can provide the Marine Corps operation when landing here for 5,000 people in one way. And it means that they are prepared here to organize very fast landing operations from air and sea. And this is a challenge for Ukraine now, and for NATO, of course, because it's Russia dominate totally in Black Sea. Actually, NATO doesn't have any strategy, first of all, and doesn't have any instruments to stop Russia to act as a navy here.
And what we can see from this map, that Russia could envelope or encroach on Ukraine basically from all sides,
Absolutely.
north, south, east, and west.
If you're talking about Belarus, this is like from the Zagreb 2021, when the Russians, first of all, when we're talking about the forces of Russian in Belarus territory, we should remember about the geography here. It's a swamps and forests here, so it's not very comfortable for normal infantry. But for special forces, missile forces, and air forces, it's ideal situation when you deploy here additional forces from Russia, and after this, you have a capability to go on all of Ukrainian depth to attack from the western to eastern part, because here Russia can go very easy to attack by land forces, but here it will be absolutely great. Can you imagine that the missile attack will be from Crimea, from some submarines and ships here, for all of territory of Ukraine, and from Belarus? So it will be disaster for Ukraine, because Ukraine is the biggest country in the Europe for territory. So can you imagine what kind of air defense and missile defense should be for Ukrainian territory, even for critical infrastructure, even for troops? It's hundreds of billions of dollars. It's really, if you try to buy it from United States, for example, it's a huge money to cover all of this territory, or even some critical infrastructure in Ukraine. It's a huge challenge for Ukraine. It's the biggest problem now, because we have a gap. If you're talking about the modern offensive operation, the missile phase will be critical one, because missiles will destroy command and control system of state and military, and of course air defense. If you destroy air defense, you have an open sky for your aviation to destroy your land forces, your command and control on division level, brigade level, and it will be disaster for Ukrainian army how to deal with next land phase of operation, and to organize defense and counter offensive operation in the situation when you don't have any command and control and intelligence. Intelligence in real time. It's a huge challenge now for Ukraine. It's not these land forces. This is missile forces. This is a great challenge, because when we're talking about the battalion task forces, it's not a problem actually, because we have a pretty strong land force, pretty strong anti-tank instruments. We have American, Ukrainian
provided.
And we have a huge Ukrainian producing of own domestic products, and it's pretty good. We have a Bayraktar, which is pretty effective on the armor on the land, yeah, but
Proved in the Caucasus.
yes, but
Karabakh War.
Not
Yes.
only.
yeah, but in the
That's right.
situation when we don't have the instruments how to stop missiles, and after this aviation, Russia collected here like 100 Iskanders here, because every
Nice.
army, I told the first 28 has missile brigade with Iskanders. And first wave of Iskanders will be 100 and 200 missiles from here. So one cell will have 300 missiles started to hit targets here. How long it takes for Ukrainian leadership to make a decision, like in Crimea, to make an order to Ukrainian troops to attack Russians. If it takes 10 minutes, Russia will have disaster, because it will be total disaster for them. It's very difficult to conduct this kind of airborne and marine corps operations. You know, the marine corps operations is absolutely difficult stuff, and it's very difficult without strong preparation. But if Ukraine will react in couple hours, it will be disaster for Russia, because it will be disaster for this operation, and it will be kind of okay, something but not success. If Ukraine will react after 12 hours, one day Russia will fix these territories and propose to Western Ukraine new negotiations to discuss what could be the next development, red lines, Finlandization, no NATO, etc. Russia will explain it that we helped for people living in Crimea because of deficit of water, because Ukraine closed the water supply to occupy Crimea, and they will occupy the infrastructure for water supply to Crimea, and they will say that we are supporting the Russian-speaking people here, and because it's a disaster, a humanitarian catastrophe, because of energy crisis, economic crisis, and junta in Kiev. In the same time, if Ukraine will, after one day, Ukraine will try to defend, I think that Russia will say that if you will try to defend yourself, we will attack from these territories on a full scale, and it will be disaster for you, because we will attack with all of our million people from Russian armed forces and all of our aircraft missiles. So this is the problem for Ukraine to keep stable development, stable preparation for this scenario.